Craig is returning as Bond for the 5th and possibly final time. Where the series will go from there is unknown. Christopher Nolan has expressed nothing but love for the property, stating that it has always been a dream of his to direct 007. Edgar Wright is also being eyed, but as with Nolan, this will only become an option once the franchise is ready to reboot once again with a new timeline and a new actor in the role of Bond. My personal vision for the next James Bond was for Idris Elba to take up the mantle, with a theme song by Lana Del Rey and David Fincher behind the camera. Bond as a franchise is perhaps the biggest it's ever been, taking in serious money. And the seriousness of its earnings is matched only by the darker tone the Craig movies adopted in order to distance itself from the goofy, over-the-top antics of the later Brosnan films. This has become something of a point of criticism over the years, with many fans yearning for the return to the series' glory days of gadget-fueled action. Skyfall saw the subtle return of such things following Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, which had practically disowned them. Then Spectre attempted to walk a tightrope of conflicting styles, the grittiness which Martin Campbell demonstrated with GoldenEye before cementing it as what we know the modern James Bond to be, and the more cartoonish flavour of the Roger Moore era. Despite these attempts, the series has never truly embraced the feeling of thrilling but ultimately weightless fun, and it probably never will again unless a suitably cartoonish director such as Edgar Wright steps in to shake things up. Think Baby Driver meets The Man from U.N.C.L.E. If anything, it would certainly provide us with the grooviest theme song since Shirley Bassey was training them out. Come to think of it, he'd probably just get her to do it. And in my opinion that's a good thing, that we'll be leaving those pulpy sensibilities behind. Because 007 is a film franchise which has endured, not because it exercised repetition in a tried and tested formula, but because it has shown constant evolution, growing and maturing, reshaping and defining the standard of action cinema. That's why I love the prospect of Nolan taking a stab at it. Building from such masterpieces as the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception and Dunkirk, he is arguably the most capable of creating a Bond which reinvents the brand to the same degree as Casino Royale, if not exceeding it. I think Nolan's elegantly clean, almost Kubrick-esque style is what the franchise needs. Eclipsing the delirious heights of Skyfall is the goal here. I like my 007 films serious as a heart attack for the most part. I'd hardly have picked the ever-cheery David Fincher as my director of choice if I didn't. Despite my preferences for further progression of Daniel Craig's Bond into even more mature, Nolanized territory, there's still the opposite end of the spectrum to daydream over, that which belongs to the likes of Edgar Wright, Matthew Vaughn and Danny Boyle. Just recently Tarantino's band of regulars, namely Tim Roth, Michael Madsen and Walton Goggins, have toyed with the notion of an ultra-violent vision of 007.
Well, cut my legs off and call me Shorty.
But as far as I'm concerned, we already have a Tarantino Bond movie. Inglourious Bastards, or at least the final act of Inglourious Bastards.
Buongiorno.
The Bastards' infiltration of the cinema full of the Nazi hierarchy attending the nation's pride premiere is practically a spy slapstick comedy. The awful attempts at European accents, the laughable charades, it lovingly mocks spy thrillers and how easily the likes of James Bond remain undercover.
Gorlami.
Scusi, con me?
Gorlami.
Ancora una volta.
Gorlami.
The same can be said for Matthew Vaughn, for more obvious reasons. The Kingsman films are blatant parodies of the Bond mythos, mixing the outrageous action of Kick-Ass with the suave mannerisms of its titular assassin agents. And these films guide us down a long lineage of films that chose to either mock or emulate the 007 template. The most famous being Austin Powers and Johnny English, which offer laughs on the level of the Scary Movie franchise, rather than the knowing winks and nudges of Inglourious. In terms of emulation, the list is endless. From the Mission Impossible series to Cars 2, James Bond has proven to be one of the most influential and consistently relevant cinematic creations in film history. However, there is one man who has gone unnoticed. A man who took the James Bond style and refashioned it to his liking. More dastardly than Blofeld, with an army of minions unlike any other. It's the toe-tapping terror. It's Dr. Goldfoot and his diabolical bikini machine. Released in 1965, this Vincent Price gem assaulted the spy movie with its groovy blend of sex appeal and slapstick comedy. Just listen to that theme song.
Dr. Goldfoot and his bikini machine.
With an animated opening sequence reminiscent of the Pink Panther series, it makes an audacious statement straight out the gate. The plot is pretty standard spy movie fare. Dr. Goldfoot is the amalgamation of Dr. No and Goldfinger, with plans for world domination, but his methods are far more eccentric than anything 007 has faced off against, because Dr. Goldfoot has a bikini machine, a device which allows him to mass-produce gold-digging beach babes. These lovely ladies have been programmed to track down and seduce the richest and most powerful men in the world, forcing them to fall in love and fork over their last penny. To be brutally honest, this movie is dumb. As dumb as you'd expect a movie to be about a machine which prints supermodels. But the real draw here is the funky music and price. You can tell he's having a ball as the conniving Goldfoot, joining in on the girls' penchant for dance numbers. There's some entertaining back and forth between the Doctor and the suspicious men on his tail, two bumbling idiots who come close to falling for his robotic imposters. But by and large the film coasts along at a steady pace. That is, of course, until we hit the film's outrageous finale. Following a cartoony torture sequence ripped straight from The Pit and the Pendulum, the race for these two meddling kids to finally catch this menace escapes his evil lair and spills out onto the streets of San Francisco, where an amazing car chase through the Bay Area ensues. This sequence is savage. Hopping from one mode of transport to the next, motorbikes splitting in two before reattaching, runaway mechanics and grenades. Top all that off with an explosive finish which surely inspired the ending of Tremors, and you've got a winner. The film is full of famous Bond trademarks, the aforementioned evil layers and goofy gadgets. Laser lipstick, anyone? But Bikini Machine was originally envisioned as a different beast entirely. According to Vincent Price, the film was once a musical in the vein of Little Shop of Horrors. Much to his dismay, the script was given another draft in the final few weeks leading up to principal photography, resulting in the songs being cut from the picture.
I wish I were dead.
However, shortly after Bikini Machine made its way to theatres, a 30-minute Dr. Goldfoot TV special aired, titled
The Wild, Weird World of Dr. Goldfoot.
The special served as a sort of sequel to Bikini Machine, with several of the film's main cast returning to reprise their roles. What's interesting about Wild Weird World is that it featured some of the musical numbers omitted from the original Bikini Machine screenplay, including It Works, a number which was initially performed by Dr. Goldfoot in pre-production. Here it is adapted to suit Dr. Goldfoot's sidekick Hugo, as he explains how the machine operates.
Works just like magic, this here gadget, you can tell. And no one but Goldfoot can make them half as well. He has a teleporter, and right before your eyes, you transport objects before you realize. From here to there to the ends of the world. And that's just one machine unfurled.
Having listened back to the songs, it's a shame they didn't make it into the final piece. It would have added another layer of fun to the stupendously campy mix.
I must admit, too much. A super duper special with a Goldfoot touch. A bikini machine. He has to rule the world. And Goldfoot's bikini machine makes a girl.
Hugo!
Yes, master.
Hugo, I told you not to handle the merchandise.
Which brings us to its official sequel, Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs. A great title, suitable for the series no doubt. Unfortunately, there's not much else positive that can be said about the film. Well, the theme song is alright, I suppose. In truth, The Girl Bombs is atrocious. And that's not just me saying it, but pretty much everyone who was involved with it as well. Gone is the animated opening title sequence, and along with it goes most of the gadgets, the sense of humour, the personality, and no one apart from Vincent bothered to return, not even Hugo. The plot on paper actually holds some promise. This time Dr. Goldfoot is producing robotic women. Not to prey on and ultimately seduce male victims, he needs something more time efficient. All they have to do now is use their looks to come within an approximate vicinity before exploding, sending their target sky high.
Poof! A wonderful explosion that destroys not only my love bombs, but their victims as well.
And to what end, you might ask? It's simple. Blow up important figures from both the American and Russian high command and you've got a nuclear war. Why defeat your enemies when they can decimate each
There's
other?
only one single thing left between me and control of the world.
Personally, I like the sound of it. It clearly riffs on another obvious inspiration, Dr. Strangelove. By mixing Cold War tensions with the Bond formula, what could have resulted is an uproarious trip of Peter Sellers meets From Russia with Love. Sadly, all this amounts to is an incomprehensible shambles clearly made on a shoestring budget.
Wild, wacky fun.
It lamely attempts to retread the ground covered by its predecessor, including a chase sequence through an amusement park, but comes across as a pathetic excuse for Bikini Machine's Cisco Bay car chase extravaganza. Even Price called this the worst film he ever appeared in, and shockingly, this garbage fire was directed by none other than Mario Bava. Yes, horror legend Mario Bava, founding father of the Giallo. How this came to be is due in part to the success of Bikini Machine. The film was a moderate success in the States, but struck gold in Italy. As a result, the sequel's production was moved to Italy with a fraction of the original's budget. As for Bava, he was contractually obligated to direct a film as part of a multi-picture deal, and despite not wanting to take on Goldfoot, he was forced to do so. Regardless of the fact that most of his fans and the man himself agree that this is his worst film, The Girl Bombs went on to become his most commercially successful film ever. But if we just ignore Girl Bombs for a minute, and go back to Bikini Machine's over-the-top delights, it raises a question of what if? What if the film were to include all the songs originally planned, completely reimagined as a Rocky Horror style musical, cranking everything up to 11?
What's a boy supposed to do with a girl like you?
In the case of that or James Bond, I think I know which film I'd rather see Edgar Wright taking a stab at. Especially now that he has the best musical of 2017 under his belt. But what do I know?
People love great bank robbery stories, so let's give them something bold and brazen as to talk about over their lattes.
What's you listening to? Oh, let me check. Tequila.
There, now that's more like it.
Tequila.